Hi, I'm Troy Flint, spokesperson for the Oakland Unified School District. I'm coming to you today from the Elihu M. Harris State Building in downtown Oakland, where there's been a tremendous outpouring of support for public education. Many of you know that public education is under siege after years and years of cuts that have seen California plunge from one of the states that prioritize education to the absolute bottom of funding for schools. Our kids are suffering as a result, and the community is mobilizing to fight against the destruction of public schools. That's what's behind the March 2nd Day of Action to Defend Public Education. Today we're seeing members of the community, concerned education advocates, students, parents, principals, teachers, labor unions, administrators, politicians on the local, state, and federal level, all coming together to put their foot down and say, enough is enough. We must prioritize public education if we're going to allow our kids to reach their potential, to create a strong and prosperous economic future for California, and to create a society that can fulfill its democratic destiny. Please join us and listen to these impassioned speeches as people talk about what's necessary to do what's right for our kids and what's right for California. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Gotta get a little bit of this. Good job organizing, getting down here today. We're here to talk about taking care of our children in California. We're also here to raise our voices about how unacceptable it is that right now we're being funded at 2005 levels in California to fund and take care of our kids. It's unacceptable. In California, we educate 1 in 3 English language learners in the United States. We educate 1 in 5 children of color and 1 in 8 public school students in the state of California. And yet we fund at the 47th of all the states in the United States. We are underfunding and criminally underfunding education in California. We have an opportunity today to come together on a day of action and have representatives from across this community, from our unions, from families, from children, from students, to talk about how we have to stand up for public education, how we have to take care of each other, and we have the right to vote on the tax extensions. We need it to get on the ballot. So what's going to happen today is we're going to have a little press conference. Each one of us is going to talk a little bit, no more than 25 minutes, go inside and have a teach-in and understand and break down in real detail just how inadequate the funding in California is to take care of our children. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here to organize. We're going to go through this in a pretty fast fashion. So first, I have Senior Education Policy Analyst for Mayor Jean Quan, Louis Cohen.
Good afternoon. If you are watching events in Washington, D.C., or in Wisconsin, or in Sacramento, you would think that we have a spending problem in this country. I'm here to tell you we don't have a spending problem, we have a revenue problem. Or more directly, we have a political problem in that we lack the political will to raise the revenues we need to pay for the programs that make a difference for our children and our communities. I saw it today in an article by former Labor Secretary Robert Reich that the 150,000 wealthiest households in this country have the same wealth as the bottom 120 million households. Let me say that again. The top 150,000 households have the same wealth as the bottom 120 million households. Now, over the last 30 years, we've consistently been cutting taxes for the wealthiest families. What we need to do is have those who can pay their fair share pay instead of asking the most powerless, our children, to take the cuts in their schools. Similarly, last year was the second best year for corporate profits ever recorded in U.S. history. And at the same time, when this state was supposedly closing its budget gap, they gave billions of new corporate tax breaks. And where do those tax breaks come out of? They come out of our schools. Well, it's time for us to find ways to raise the revenues for the things that really matter for the people of this community, this state, and this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louis. And obviously, Mayor Kwan is incredibly supportive of the schools and children, and it's been great to work with you already. Thank you. So we have next President of the Oakland Education Association and somebody who's been championing children, Betty Olson-Jones.
Thank you. I really appreciate that all of you came out, and I really appreciate that we were able to work together with the other unions, with district administrators, with principals, with community folks to make this happen today. The sites I visited this morning for early morning picketing and disaster drills and lesson plans, the message was loud and clear. From students through teachers, through principals, through parents, people are tired of the budget cuts. We know that we cannot continue to suffer with higher and higher class sizes. It's hurting all of these children. We cannot afford to lose adult ed. We cannot afford to lose our new teachers because we can't keep them here because of layoffs. And I want to quote somebody who was on the Oscars the other night because he put it really straight. Charles Ferguson accepted his Oscar for the documentary Inside Job, and he said, "I must start by pointing out that 3 years after our horrific financial crisis caused by financial fraud, not a single financial executive has gone to jail, and that's wrong." So I want to start with the long-term work we have, and it's been summed up already by Superintendent Smith and by Louis Cohen for Jean Kwan. That's what we have in front of us, and I want to start with our children. I taught elementary school. If you ask any child, they remember what they learned in kindergarten. They remember that it's only fair if you share, if you take responsibility, if you're kind to each other, right, kids? You learn that in kindergarten, and if they knew that the priorities in this state favor large corporations and banks, and the priorities in this state say there is no money for children, they would be outraged. They are outraged. They've been here leading this rally today. They're really quick to understand if we change the priorities, and instead of being bottom in the country in per pupil spending and number 1 in the country in prison spending, if we flipped those, we wouldn't have the kind of problems that we have today in this incredibly wealthy state. So we are here to say that we are tired of cuts. Band-Aids are not going to fix what's wrong, even though many of us in OEA will reluctantly, and I say reluctantly, support extending current regressive taxes. We know that in the long run, the only solution is for there to be progressive taxation that takes the corporations and the banks and makes them pay their fair share. We need long-term change. We can't keep cutting off one arm, one leg, one portion time after time after time. So we look forward to working with everybody to fight for long-term change so we can focus on the real tasks in front of us, and that is educating all of these children who are here. We invite you to come to Sacramento on March 14th with OEA members, parents, and students to continue to speak out against cuts and demand a serious move toward progressive taxation. And we invite you to come on March 26th to the town hall meeting to speak out to elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. It's been a loud voice for our kids. I appreciate it. And we've been fortunate that Assemblymember Swanson is here, a person who has been ringing this bell and sounding the alarm in Sacramento about taking care of our kids. Assemblymember Swanson.
Well, thank you all for being here to demonstrate our concern for the future of our children. This is about our children. Many people may believe that the debate in Sacramento is over a $26 billion budget deficit, but it really is and should be a debate over California values. And if it's a debate over values, who should win in that debate? Well, I contend that the children should win in that debate. One of the things that we know very clearly, those of us that feel passionate about education and passionate about our children, is that there is no way around our responsibility to our children. There are no shortcuts. There's no cheap way to do it. There's only the right way to do it. That is to show the concern, to give our children the resources and the tools necessary for them to develop as positively as possible. Because if you do not spend that money for our children as they're developing in the right way, then you're going to have to spend money to help our children get back on track because they may have lost their way. And so we now are trying to let everyone in Sacramento know that it is also a better economic solution for us to invest in our children, early childhood education, making sure that our schools are well equipped, and making sure that California can say once and for all, we stand for something. How many times have we asked that question? What does California stand for? Being 47th in per pupil expenditure doesn't mean we stand for education as a priority, but what is it that we stand for? What are our values? What are our principles? What's our moral commitment? Well, if it can't be to our children, then what are we doing? And I believe it has to be to our children. Finally, let me just say that I've had a pleasure working with both Betty and Jody, as well as Superintendent Smith, to try to make the state more accountable for the mistakes the state made in its running of this district before we were able to wrestle back control to our school board. That is very important because as chair of the Assembly Select Committee on School Financial Takeovers, I'm going to make sure that when the state takes over a district, they don't leave the district in worse shape than it was when they first took over the district. And then our students suffer as a result of that. And so I ask all of you to remain vigilant, to let the governor know how you feel about education as a priority, to let both Democrats and Republicans in the legislature find out how you feel about that. This is not a question of just finance. This is a question of values, and I'm standing with you to make sure that our children represent our only important value during this debate. We cannot balance our budget on the backs of our children, on the backs of seniors or the disabled. California must stand for something, and I think that now is the time for us to make that very clear. Thank you all very much, and God bless.
Thank you for your leadership. Appreciate it. And now we also have from Assemblymember Nancy Skinner's office, Mark Checkelbane.
Well, you look incredible. Thank you all for coming today. Assemblymember Skinner, sorry she couldn't be here today. She's actually on the Budget Conference Committee, one of the 10 legislators that are negotiating on the budget right now. I spent yesterday morning for an hour volunteering in my son's kindergarten classroom. He's in kindergarten at a public school just a few miles down the road. It was an incredible experience. I volunteered in September and then yesterday. And looking at the difference of these children, these kindergarten children, over the last 6 months of what they're doing now, most of them are reading, they're sitting still, they're paying attention to their teacher, and they're actually getting along with each other. In September, this wasn't happening. Believe me, it wasn't happening. Those of you with kids, you know that was not happening when they started. This was public school. This was public education. It would be a crime to make this teacher have to have 8 or 9 more kids in her classroom next year. A crime. We cannot stand for this. But this is where you come in. The legislature, Assemblymember Swanson, Senator Hancock, they can't do this alone. This is what you need to do. Do you have your pens and paper out? First of all, go to the state PTA website. Go to the state PTA website when you get home. It will tell you where to go to send letters to legislators around this budget. Call your friends, tweet your friends, go on your Facebook page. Talk about what public education means to you, has meant to you, and means to your family. If they live in Bakersfield, they live in Orange County, they live in San Diego, they need to contact their legislators and talk about what public education means. Tell your public education story. Write a letter to the San Jose Mercury News, to the Sacramento Bee, to the Los Angeles Times. Tell your story. And everyone, please raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. I will get 20 people to vote in June. Please repeat. I will get 20 people to vote in June. Finally, thank you, and stay in touch with the Oakland Federation of Teachers. There surely will be a campaign to get people out to the polls in June, and we all need to help support them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Next, we have the president of SEIU, Manette Thiard, and I want to say something about the disproportionate effect of the cuts over the last few years on classified. Folks, our classified staff have been reduced at a greater rate and taken the brunt of the effect of the cuts over the past few years. We're being funded at 05-06 levels, and the people who have paid the biggest price for that, besides the children, are our classified staff. Manette Thiard.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, but it's a pleasure that's sad, because these children that you see right here are the children that are the classified employees' children. And we realize that. And so these budget cuts are double hits. They hurt our children, they hurt our members. And the superintendent is right. Classified employees every year have been the ones who've taken these cuts. It's not fair. And it's not to say that it should be somebody else taking the cuts. It should be big business paying for these things. It shouldn't be us. We recognize that they make enough money to cover every school that we have in the state of California in 1 month's salary. So for them to say that it's okay for our children, the future, to be the ones to suffer is not right. So I encourage every one of you, not 25 people, to go out and vote. We need 50. We need 55 people going out to vote in June. Because the reality of it is we need to send a message. And if we don't send a strong enough message, these cuts will continue. It won't just be classified. It won't just be teachers. It won't be anything. There won't be any public schools. So understand what that looks like for us. No education for our children. The prisons will be filled. But the reality of it is it'll be with our babies. And we can't have that. So today we want to send a message. The message is, it's not us, it's you. And we want everybody to hear that message loud and clear. And thank you for coming out today.
Thank you, Manette. So next we have our Senator Lonnie Hancock's representative, Pedro Rosado.
Thank you. Whoa, tall. So my name is Pedro Rosado, District Representative for Senator Lonnie Hancock. Senator Hancock thanks you for inviting her to this very important event, and she wishes she could be here with you today in solidarity. She's in Sacramento, however, working out each of the concerns that you all are fighting for today. So she's asked me to say a couple of words. It can't be emphasized enough the challenges California and our district are facing today with the $25 billion deficit. The governor's presented a budget proposal now that is real and upfront. There's no gimmicks, there's no shifts. But although the governor proposed a state budget that preserves K-12 this year, this is only contingent upon the placement of language in a June ballot to continue existing taxes for 5 years. So this is existing taxes, it's not adding more taxes, 0.5% of the vehicle licensing fee and 1% sales tax. Yeah, that's true. But it is not new that California schools, colleges, and universities are expected and continue to have to do more with less. So schools are pressured to improve academic achievement while remaining fiscally solvent and at the same time deal with budgetary pressures and constraints. So just know that Senator Hancock is continuing to fight for you in Sacramento, but she needs your help. She needs for you to help if and when the June ballot is presented to citizens in California to vote for this tax extension. But this has to be placed on the June ballot. So we need you to encourage other family members in other districts outside of the Bay Area to go to their legislators to convince them to vote for the placement of this constitutional amendment on the June ballot. So it's not on the June ballot yet. We got to convince a couple of people from the Senate and a couple of people from the Assembly to put this on the ballot. And if this does not pass, we will face further cuts. However, if it's placed and it passes, we can look forward to renewal and a new outlook, getting closer to resolving a budget crisis that has plagued all of us for so long. All in all, cuts will be painful, and the budget deficit now is difficult and devastating. The needs are very high right now. but we need to do something about it, and we need to get that constitutional amendment on the June ballot. We have the framework to do it. Let's push other family members in other districts, particularly in places where there's people who have taken a pledge not to raise taxes, to actually put it on the June ballot, and let's vote for it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you very much. Next, we have a principal from Manzanita Seed, and Catherine Carter's been a real voice for equity, for school funding, for staffing. Catherine.
So I really could not agree more with the sentiment being shared right now. And I'm speaking to you today not only as the principal of Manzanita Seed, which just got named a National Title I Distinguished School, and named such for our progress in closing and narrowing the achievement gap, but also as a fifth-generation graduate and product of the public school system here in California. As such, I have seen and actually lived the dismantling and the underfunding of our public education system. The same opportunities that my parent, grandparent, great-grandparent, and great-great-grandparent had are not available to our children today. When I was a child in elementary school in the 70s, we started seeing some of the changes in the taxation structure that are now leading to a system that we are experiencing today. And even with the current budget proposed by our governor, if that budget goes forward and our taxes are passed, we are still looking at state funding levels that are funding our classrooms at a ratio of about 50-1. That's if the tax passes. The only reason that we actually have lower class sizes right now is because Oakland voters have already passed taxes. We're already paying Measure G. We're already getting a little bit of extra money from the state for class size reduction. We're already getting funding from sources like the lottery to pay off into our school system. But the sad reality is the actual funding that we get through our state budget right now does not even give us classrooms that are compliant with the education code. It gives us classrooms without support staff. It gives us classrooms with one teacher with student sizes that generally are frankly not seen in first world countries. And yeah, I agree completely with everything that was said today. It's not enough to pass this June vote. We absolutely need to, however. And at the same time, we have to be building a movement and sharing the facts about what's really going on in California so we can change the current way that we're funding our schools and make sure that all of our students have the opportunities that the people who came before us had. Thank you.
Well said. Well said, Catherine. Thank you very much. Now we're going to transition to our OUSD Student Board Director, Nikita Mitchell. Nikita?
All right, so I want you to close your eyes right now and imagine walking into a classroom with 46 students, 20% of which have no seat, and an overworked teacher who is stretched beyond capacity but is burdened by unrealistic state standards. This is an everyday occurrence in Oakland and throughout the states. In these conditions, I find it ridiculous that a school and students are blamed for a lack of enrollment or low test scores when we have seen we are not the priority from the state. Education is crucial in producing life opportunities for young people and a future for our state. And the success of this state and country infringes on the success of the students. However, how can a state make us believe this when they are unwilling to nurture the very foundation that it stands on? The state is mentally bank robbing students of their vision, motivation, and inspiration. Within this economic crisis, the institution has disregarded the importance of a well-rounded and rich education because knowledge has become too expensive. However, investing in a next prisoner is not. However, the budget cuts has done one positive thing, I must say. It has driven us to a maddening point of no return, motivating us to speak out and reclaim our stolen education. Thank you.
Powerful words from a leader. Thank you very much. And now we're going to close this part with our board director, Jody London, who has done a lot to organize and be here today and is an advocate. We're also then going to transition inside. I'll say a little bit about that. Jody London.
Thank you. I say Nikita Mitchell for president in, 2028? Is that divisible by 4? I want to thank all of you for coming out. I want to thank the students. I want to thank our teachers. I want to thank our classified staff. I want to thank our custodians. I want to thank our elected friends. I want to thank our parents. Thank you. I am a parent, and I shudder to think what will happen if I have to, as a school board member, cut the school year next year. For me, that's an additional expense because I'm also a working parent. I'm on the school board, I have another job, and that means I have to find childcare. And I'm not saying that our schools provide childcare. Our schools provide opportunity for our children, and we want our children in the classroom for as long as we can keep them there and keep them engaged. We have big ambitions here in Oakland. We want to be a full-service community district. The schools that we have we have a handful of great schools, and we have some other schools that are doing really good work, and we want every school to be a great school. We want every school to be Catherine Carter's school. And I want you to join me, to join this broad coalition. Please come inside for the teach-in. We're going to hear a great presentation from the California Budget Project. Then we're going to bring it down to the local level, and we're going to hear from our deputy and superintendent for business about how this affects Oakland. Did you know that if the state was following the formulas right now, we would have $50 million more in our budget every year? $50 million in Oakland is a lot of money. And my daughter's telling me that time is up, so I'm going to tell you that we need your help. We appreciate your support. Write your letters, make your phone calls, and more than anything, let everybody know we support public education in Oakland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you everybody for organizing out here.